All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. And so really the goal of this session, and this is one that came out of comments last time in terms of just wanting to share more information on what counties are doing in the check-in process. So I would say just kind of think of that whole process here. We have some information down in terms of examples we're going to talk about in terms of scales. So are scales multi-species? What scales are used for what kind? Are they bar scales? Some have the TVs up and you see the scale as they walk across. And so we'll talk about some of these things. And then we're going to get to actual schedule and then even some of the facilities that are used. So again, that may be a real simple topic, but what do you have for facilities for the check-in process if there's anything unique? So again, the thing we want to get from, we have a couple speakers and I'll introduce them. They're going to kind of set up what their counties have in some of these areas. But then the goal of this is to get many of you involved, or we'll start calling on you as well, just to talk about some of these areas. And so again, information sharing, what are some key things that have worked or haven't worked, or no one has complaints about, or you may get compliments for. So those are the things we want to share with each other during this session. And I will say come 8:15, and I'll help watch the clock, it will be a hard stop where we're all going to get kicked back to the main session without warning at 8:15. So I'll try and help monitor that. But really what we have here is we have a couple speakers that we've asked to provide some information on this topic just to kind of get us going and what they do in their particular county. And so we have Corinne Patterson of Lyon County. She's been an agent there for many years and has a lot of experience in this particular area, working in the youth livestock and 4-H area. We also have Janet Harkness of the West Plains District, and West Plains is a combination of Finney and Scott County, for those that are unaware of that particular district. And so, Corinne, would you like to maybe just kick us off, and you can just start talking about some of these areas? And so, well, I guess what I would ask is what we're going to plan to do is have Corinne and Janet both talk, and then we can circle back to questions for them to kind of get things set up, and then we can turn it loose with questions for anybody and other comments. But we'll have both of them just kind of set things up. We'll come back for specific questions that you may have for them. And again, I'll monitor the chat session, or once we're done, you can unmute and ask questions directly as well to keep this as interactive as possible. So with that, Corinne, we'll turn things over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Joel. And I also will share that Brian Reese, our ag agent, is on with me. It's not that either of us couldn't do it by ourselves, but we don't want to. So we consider each other a partner in crimes. We are fortunate in Lyon County that we have had a staff that's been on board together for a long time, as well as our fair board. We have a consistent group of people, adding in a few new people on occasion, but it has made some really great improvements to our county fair scales and check-in process over the years. So we do have 3 scales, but before we go across the scale, depending on the year, if there's any KDA or veterinarian recommendations, we will have a vet check before we get started, before anybody unloads anything. VSV, we had to do that, but years where there isn't a major outbreak or anything that we're concerned of, we do go ahead and let our families unload animals and put them in their pens. And we do have fair pre-entries on our animals just by numbers. And so we do have pen assignments. So that also helps our families who are new. Many years we didn't have pen assignments, and new families, we did it by club. So we just said these number of stalls are for each club. Well, we found that new families kind of got left behind. And so we actually put names on each pen now too. And that we have some fair board members who help us go ahead and put the tags on there, but Brian does a lot of the sorting on that. And so that's a key component to everyone arriving on the fairgrounds. And all of our livestock come in on the same day on a Thursday. We are moving the time earlier and earlier because our fair office wants to break classes and not be late that first night. So our check-in in 2022 will be everyone in place by 3 p.m. And that's when we'll start weighing and going across the scales. So at that time, we can open up 2 different scales. Brian and I will divide and conquer. And so he will This year, we are going to start with beef and swine weigh-in. We had been doing sheep and goats and swine at the same time and beef later, but beef is now our first show, and it's been really successful to move that to our Friday first show of the livestock portion of the fair. And so we are weighing in beef from 3 to 4, and we weigh in about 60 market animals at the most. And then also all of our breeding heifers are checked in. So it does take a good full hour, but if we give them longer, of course they take longer. So we have narrowed that time down, and that really does, I mean, it's not a hard and fast. We're not going to shut the scales down at 4, but for the most part, people are very polite and make sure they get to the scales in time. Swine weigh-ins the same way. We have had numbers drop in swine over the last 13 years. And so we can get those through the scales from 3 to 4. So another hour there. We'll take a short break, and then we'll start sheep weigh-in, and then followed by goats. And at the sheep and goat scale, we do have a health inspection for fungus. And we actually are checking out all of our animals, pigs, cattle too, when they go through. Our coordinators are actually extension volunteers. So the coordinator superintendents of our different departments at the fair are considered extension volunteers. The fair board does not recruit them, but some of our fair board members are also a coordinator. So we do try and have fair board representation for each species, and then other volunteers who help and basically go with the guidelines with us. And so we have meetings with them at least 2 times a year to reevaluate, to go over the fair book, to go over our spring show together. So we do a lot of partnership that way. The 3 scales that we have a small animal scale for the pigs. I guess it's just it's a bar scale, but it's a digital readout. So everyone sees that, and they will call it. We have one coordinator who every year that's his job to call the weight. And those weights are listed in the fair book. Whether you can have a slide on that for pigs, we do give a 5-pound grace, and we publish that now. It used to be where it was pretty, people thought that it was favoring or whatnot, but it's published. You can have a 235 is what your pig needs to weigh, but if it weighs 230, we're going to let you sell. And so anyone can show. Of course, we just have a lightweight class for those that don't make weight. Cattle are the same way, but they go on the big scale, and we used to weigh our sheep and goats on that scale, but we're fortunate that the fair board purchased a platform scale. So all 3 scales stay in their buildings. We had an old scale house that was not torn down, luckily. So that platform scale that was purchased is also a certified scale and does not move, and neither does the beef scale or the pig scale, so that we can sell off of those. I know that some fairs have had some situations where every time you move the scale, of course, that takes away its certification. So that's really an important component, or something that's fortunate in Lyon County. I don't know, Brian, am I forgetting anything that you think is important? We do scan every single animal in as they come into the fair with the EID reader, and we use David Keller's program in Excel. And Brian's the mastermind in Excel. I will not act like that's my gift, but Brian's is. And so we will go ahead and sort those through our Excel file. We are handwriting down weights on the fair pre-entry as well. So the fair board will send us blue ribbon, all the pre-entries from that. Of course, we know how many animals we tagged for each family. So we're writing down dual, we're entering it in the computer direct. And then I have another volunteer who's handwriting it in the fair system, handwritten paperwork, so that they can hopefully enter that easy. But we have the backup too, to have 2 different versions of what comes through. After we're done with 125 pigs, we don't want to mess that up.
Probably the only thing I might add, Corinne, would be that we don't have an open class. We are fortunate there. It's strictly a 4-H animal side of things. So we don't have to worry about any of the open class like it sounded like Wilson County might. So that simplifies things from our aspect as well.
Okay, very good. Very good. Yeah, thanks for all that information. Janet, do you want to maybe jump in and give your information?
Sure. So last summer was my first year in Kansas. I'm a 17-year extension agent. I come from upstate New York, where we focus a lot more on dairy. So learning livestock and the system for weighing in and processing was quite interesting last year. We do have portable scales in both counties for our small livestock. I'm in Scott and Finney counties. We also have a portable scale for our beef, which does have, all of our scales have digital readout as well. one of the things that we started last year in Scott County is we actually created a check-in procedure sheet for our exhibitors, our families. This was exceptionally helpful for our new families. And those check-in sheets actually had step-by-step details about what time you needed to be at fair, on what day, where to come to check in, what time weigh-in was in, and all that. We did email that out 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time through 4-H Online to all of our families, and we made it species specific. And then for 2022, we added a few differences for our check-in procedure, like hogs need to be there by 5. They weigh from 6 to 7, but they need to be washed before they hit the scales so that the mud's taken off. We can read tags and ear notches and such. So we do our weigh-in Scott County. We do sheep and goats first. It's from 6 to 7. Beef follows from 7 to 8. Swine is in the hog barn being weighed, and it's myself and our ag agent Renee Tuttle that help out with our superintendents. And it's a really communication when you're working with your superintendents, especially around tagging and weigh-in, is very, very important. I can't stress that enough. So we do a paper version in Scott County of recording weights. We also do an online version. We do not use a computer program for entry in Scott County. But Finney County, we use Fair Entry. And so we will get those printed sheets from Fair Entry, and we will write that down by family. We have it organized by family. And then as their animals come across scale, we will weigh them and write that down. And then we will put that into a spreadsheet as well as enter that into Fair Entry, just so that we have a couple copies to go back and check against in case somebody has a question. Our superintendents pretty much will be calling out the weights while we record them as agents. And they are also the ones in charge of handling any discrepancies. If you have a family that wants to dispute weights, it's good to have your superintendent and or your fair board on board for weights and to have them present to help with that. Some of the other things that we've been doing for weigh-in in our fair procedure is to create our Facebook Messenger groups with our superintendents in charge of those, talking to all families, both 4-H and open, for constant communication, especially this year with everything changing between YQCA, show works, and everything else. So that's really super important for us out in Western Kansas. The other thing that we've used to streamline kind of our check-in and weigh-in process is there's some extra forms that some of the kids have to fill out, like their insurance, if they're going to have insurance on their animals or opt out of it. We have uploaded all of those forms to Fair Entry so they can complete that with the registration process as well. We also keep, tagging records, and we double check those tags at weigh-in to make sure what we put in April and May is what shows up in July. And then if we've changed those throughout the summer, if they've fallen out or ripped out, we record that as well. But pretty much just echoing what Corinne said, with the scales, getting them calibrated, making sure everybody's on board, and having enough help. Because in Finney County, we also do, when we weigh in hogs, we'll do a breed identification. So that's good to have that knowledgeable person there as well. So I'm willing to take any questions if anyone has any, and would love to hear what everybody else is doing.
Sure, very good. Thank you for that. And so I guess just kind of looking, I don't see anything in, well, yeah, let me see. Yeah, in our chat. So the chat appears to be kind of universal to all the groups. So, but if you have something that you want to just unmute, I'll be honest, I think that'd be as efficient as anything. If you want to unmute and ask your question to either Corinne or Janet at this time, or if you have some comments directly, they don't have to be questions. If you have comments about your county and these, that's where we certainly would like and require as well. So maybe I'll have a question. It came up on vet checks. So I know in Potawatomi County 2 years ago, we had never had necessarily a vet check, didn't need health papers, all those sort of things. Curious for each of you, Corinne and Janet, I know you talked a little bit, Corinne, about inspecting sheep and fungus and whatnot. What is, maybe just recap, maybe what's officially or not officially in place, or how could a person qualify to get through that type of inspection if one is official?
Well, I can go through a few examples of how we have done it different throughout the years. We have hired veterinarians to come in and do it. And basically we've told, most people are more aware of fungus and different things with we've preached that they need to pay attention to what their animals look like before they bring them in. And if, for instance, if you brought a trailer in and we were doing the vet inspection, your whole trailer would be sent home. So we knew families, if they thought they had issues, of course, they'd bring in sheep separate from pigs. And so, we've been through that process, but as education, as our 4-Hers are asking more questions and working with us more closely, we have found that basically the only time that we find coordinators find it, and if the family questions it, we have a veterinarian who allows us to use her on call. And so it's technically not a vet check anymore. It is really just a health inspection by our coordinators. And, our coordinators are going around while animals are coming onto the fairgrounds, and people, we have red flag alerts all the time. And many times we've only had one situation where we've sent something home after it came. But it was unloaded, put in a pen, and then loaded back up and went back home. So not very often have we found that to be a challenge now moving through, except like we said, in years where Kansas Department of Ag or K-State has recommended that we do a full inspection of all livestock for like VSV and those kind of things, we've done that.
Okay.
And that's a separate line where before anybody unloads, the trailer goes through we had 3 veterinarians volunteer their time. And we were there for a long period of time because we do allow them to bring them in a lot of families will bring in from like 10 to 3.
Mhm.
So we also employ a veterinarian in one of our counties. We used to have a veterinarian there for inspection before the animals hit the fairgrounds, before they could even go through weigh in. This year, Scott County, the superintendents have elected to do an initial health check themselves as animals come onto the fairgrounds, and we will have a veterinarian on call for questionable animals. And those animals, if there's a question, they do not get off the trailer. They will wait on the trailer for the vet to come in and take a look and make a decision.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think these are good examples. I know, like I said, in Potawatomi County 2 years ago, we didn't have really anything necessarily. We went to a vet check station before the animals were unloaded, or the youth could choose within a few days, I forget, it's within 2 or 3 days, to have a health certificate. And we have some veterinarians that do free health certificates for the county fair. So kind of trying to use that as an educational time, but that is not required before they come and have a vet just kind of look through the animals before they're unloaded. Because I know, Corinne, like you said, sometimes they get in and then what do you do? And you get them back out. At least it's worked the last couple of years to do that, but it all takes logistics, right? And depending on the number of animals and trailer times and everything. So yeah, very good. We
have found being more laxed has less people bringing in animals with questionable problems. And when Brian and I first started over a decade ago together, it was very strict. Everything went through a vet check. The line was long. It was hot. People were aggravated. They brought in multiple trailers, like I said, just to make sure they didn't get something disqualified. And now that it's more on their honor, people come to us ahead of time, or we've heard several people go to their veterinarians ahead of time and get that clearance if they have a question. Yeah, very good. Good tips there. Okay. I think it was interesting. Janet started mentioning too about breeds. I don't know how many fairs we do family tagging in Lyon County, and we also allow you must declare the breed as we are tagging it. Yes. And so it's declared in April for small animals. It's declared in February for beef. But then when it comes across the scale, that's when it's at that point, if one of my coordinators says, that's not a hamp, it will go crossbred. I mean, the coordinators do have that last visual appraisal of the animal. Hopefully when they're the ones actually tagging it, they catch those things. But that's when as they go across the scale is when they're assigned to the 4-H'er and the breed is declared or confirmed, I should say. Sure.
No, and it was helpful for us because, you're tagging little piglets in April and May, and as they grow, their markings, I guess, change a little bit. So it was good to have that extra set of eyes there, because then we get it standardized at county fair. So when they go to state fair, they don't run into those same problems. So it's really good to have that check in place at the county level.
I don't know who was asking about, I don't know if they're here, but when you're worried about biosecurity and those protocols, if someone is concerned about that, we dip all of our equipment, and our coordinators will put on booties and they'll go through a dip. But if you're worried about that personally, we allow families they still need to bring their animals into our tagging, but they can get in their own trailer and tag them themselves, and even have equipment of their own if they want to. So there are options if you're not taking your animals to any spring show at all and choose not to have your animals exposed to anything. If you want to keep that level of biosecurity, there's easy ways to do that and not make it where agents should be driving to everyone's house and doing it that way too. That would be pretty complex, I would think. But we're a large county.
Yeah.
And this is Mark McGee. I was asking that question.
Yeah.
So when you said family tagging, people in your county can go get tags and take them home and tag them? No. What do you mean? You do family tagging in the trailer?
Like the nomination for the state, you tag everything until you actually enter it. So by family, it's tagged. And sometimes we know that some cousins even are with families. We in Lyon County will allow that because they're managed together. So then if a pig dies, then the cousin's not out because they can't swap into the other one.
Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So within a family unit, I think that's something we do in our county. I'll be honest, I'm a huge advocate for that personally for our county fair animals that, and again, if some counties make individual youth designate what that animal is in April or beginning of May, depending on your county. Again, that's your rules, and I can respect that. I'm a huge advocate of the family. So like for myself, I have 3 children. We tag our pigs in, and then beginning first week of July, when we have our entries for county fair, we have to designate who's showing what at that point. And so again, these are to me, they're family projects. They pitch in together. It's hard, it's hard enough to balance all that we all can recognize sometimes. And it just allows, in case, as Corinne says, something dies, something gets hurt, it allows that family and all the individuals to have an animal that's adequate for the fair if that comes up. But again, different counties handle it differently. I would say there used to be more strict in that in the state. As I've done these clinics over time, the feedback we've had is that more of the family nomination or the family tagging takes place. So the Joel DeRushi family pigs are tagged this, and then come county fair, they just need to make sure they're within those tag numbers.
Yeah. And Mark, going back to your biosecurity, when we tag one family. So all those animals on that trailer are done. Then we move on after we've cleaned everything to go on to the next trailer. We're not bouncing in between trailers or our family's exhibitors.
Yeah. So Corinne and Jenna, you both check all your animals in on the same day, correct? Or did I misunderstand? Okay. I guess, is there anybody on right now that checks the 4-H market animals in over different days?
So Finney County did do that, Joel, last year because we were on a modified fair schedule due to COVID restrictions in the county. We were checking in species 1 every night. And that was a good lesson in time management to get everybody checked in and have that show book by 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. the next morning. For our beef, we did an evening show. So they came in and we had 2 hours to weigh everybody in, check tags, and get our fair book put together and start the show. When you do something like that, you need to have a lot of extra help on deck and make sure you've discussed roles and job descriptions beforehand so that it works efficiently.
Yeah.
Joel, this is Leonard Bristow at Rooks County. We do a 2-day weigh-in. On Monday morning from 8 to noon, we do sheep and goats. They have to come in that day. The pigs and the cattle can also weigh in on that day, but they don't have to. They could also weigh in on Tuesday. So ours is scheduled over a 2-day period.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Leonard. Thanks for joining. So,
Hey,
so
Joel.
I guess, has that just been the tradition there, Leonard? Why you allow over 2 days? Is that just due to your show schedule and family flexibility if they're bringing in multiple species in one trip? Or
It-
why do you do that over 2 days?
It's been tradition. One of the reasons that the sheep and goats are actually weighed in on only on Monday, because the sheep and goat show is on Tuesday evening. So that gives us some time to get everything completed and the scheduling done. We also have a vet check, and they cannot be unloaded from the trailer until they are vet checked.
Yeah.
Just specifically for sheep and goats. The others do not have to have a vet check. I'm not personally a big fan of doing it that way. We've had some issues where hogs come in where they've been covered with mud, had a little extra mud placed on them because they were a little light. And that issue has changed for the rules this year. They will be washed if necessary. I would rather just have an hour or 2 hour weigh-in for those species. But with the sheep and the goats, it does help just so they can get them in there and have the vet check.
So, Leonard, do you allow a backpack full of mud on the backs of those pigs?
Well, last year was the worst year that we had. A lot of years it's normal. You can see that they were out in the mud and they come in and it wasn't washed. Last year we physically had some that you could tell it was placed on there.
No, man.
And it just wasn't right. So we obviously changed the rule to take care of that this year.
Sure, understand. Oh, good.
In Waubonsee County, we have animals come in on Friday, but we have our official weigh-in and check-in Saturday morning, but families are allowed to bring to the grounds if they want them that extra night.
Yeah. And you check them all in then that morning?
Yeah, we only have one official check-in weigh-in time.
Yeah. And do you have multiple, so during that time, in your case, do you have multiple species being checked in at the same time, or do you knock through each one individually and roll through them singly?
Previously, we've only ever had one scale going, so there's a rotation of it. There's discussion in my dream world. We would have at least 2 going and kind of split it to make it a more time efficient. But we have a lot of hogs, but beef, sheep, and goats we can usually get through in a timely manner.
Yeah, very good.
I guess for me, one of the biggest surprises coming from the East Coast is what I would consider with your vet checks and your health paperwork is how lax it is. I mean, back in, on the East Coast, you'd have to have your CVI from your vet with every animal with their ear tag listed, all their vaccinations, health inspection and all that. And last year it was like, what? No health papers? You don't need, this and that and 5 other things. So kudos to you as fair management and agents to be able to handle that yourself and not have to have all those state rules and regulations put in place for your fair. So that is pretty impressive to me.
Okay. We got a few minutes left. Is there anybody else in this session that would like to share anything that's unique or something that you changed that really works well for you that you think would be good for people to hear?
I guess I hear that a lot of you do it. I'm Risa Overmiller from Smith County, and a lot of you do it during the day. And several years ago, it was 114 the day of check-in, and we went to night check-in. We do have a vet there, and everybody goes by the vet first, and their cards, every kid's card gets marked by the vet. And so we just have moved our check-in to in the evening. It works really good for us. We avoid a lot of the heat issues that way. And it just seems to work for our families that have working families. We have moved our fair to over the weekend in the last 10 years. And so they come in Thursday night, and that just seems to work really good for our working families. Out of the Post-Arc district, we have one of the biggest 4-H's, and so we have a lot of animals at our fair, and it just seems to really work. We do run 2 scales. We have the beef scale, and then we have the hogs, the goats, and the sheep that all run through a separate scale, and they're all ran by the superintendents. I print off the sheets with the numbers, and they check them off and put them all in and then send it back to me. And I do like that part of ours is that we check in the evening. So.
Yep.
Janet, I'm interested about your exhibitor sheets. Would you be willing to share those? We're trying to, we have a lot of new families that are livestock, and then we have a lot of show families so I feel like we lose some of our new families because we just kind of assume everybody knows.
Sure. Joel, is that something I could send to you to send out to all the participants after? Okay.
Absolutely. We can put that in the resource folder. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I think about at any point, Lexi's going to give us the axe out of this thing. We're going to jump back to the main session. So appreciate all the comments and discussion. So we're going to repeat this. And so Corinne and Jan, if you didn't get enough of them, if you want to listen to them again, you're more than willing to. Yeah, we'll be going back to the main session here in probably just a little short while. And then you'll be able to pick one of the other two sessions to come in. I would also say that if you have things that you would like to contribute to this resource folder that's in this area, okay, please send that to myself or Lexi or Kelsey, and we can include that as well. So again, we just want to get as much information out there as we can. So, okay, it looks like our breakout room is going to close in 36 seconds, or at least that's what it says on my screen. So we'll go ahead and wrap this up. And if you want to, are you all seeing the little box that says you can leave the breakout room? Okay,
yes.
So why don't we all just hit that, and then we'll just get kicked back to the main session. Thanks, everybody.